For someone whose entire career has been focused on joy, why a podcast on pain? Because these stories need to be told. A good phoenix rising out of the ashes story reminds us all that not only can we survive, we can thrive. And when we emerge, we're different. That's the alchemy of pain. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Alchemy of Pain, the podcast with a title that could sound like a buzzkill, except for the fact that we believe that pain can often reveal our purpose, that there is some good to be found through the difficult things in life, and it's meant to encourage you if you are one of those people going through those times. I'm always honored to introduce you to people who inspire me, and I know you will be inspired by my friend Lauren Fonville. Lauren is an integrative energy practitioner, and I think a great starting point would be to say, and what the heck is that?
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you today, Brenda. So, an integrative energy practitioner. It basically means that I use a variety of different healing modalities when I work with my clients. So I am a trauma-informed yoga instructor. I am an EFT practitioner. I do sound healing classes, playing my crystal alchemy singing bowls, and I lead meditation classes too. So I really try to weave all of these different modalities together when working with my clients to get to the root of why they are feeling the way that they are feeling, so that they can really hold space for their emotions, feel their emotions, and then move through them and grow from them. And like you said, find purpose through the pain.
So before we started recording, you said something about feelings because, sometimes we apologize for crying, or we have an emotional breakdown and we find ourselves being ashamed of that. And the opposite is true.
100%. And I think what I said was, we need to feel it to heal it. So when we are crying or feeling the emotions, it means that we haven't shut down. It means that we're allowing ourselves to sit in it, to feel those feelings. And that's not something that everybody does. A lot of people don't feel comfortable sitting in their feelings, whether it is sadness or anger or frustration. We don't enjoy feeling those feelings. They aren't comfortable, and so we tend to stuff them down. And then we distract ourselves with something else so we don't have to feel that. But then in the long haul, right, all those feelings that you've been stuffing down begin to build up to a point where they're going to come out in some way. And sometimes they manifest themselves physically, and sometimes it's emotionally, and you have a meltdown, or you freak out at somebody who doesn't necessarily deserve it. And so when you allow yourself to feel it and you're feeling it, it's okay. You're allowed to feel it. It's part of the human experience.
And that is where I struggled personally. And I want to get to your story, absolutely, because you did not just descend from a rainbow with all these healing modalities and sprinkled pixie dust on people. I have found that the greatest healers are the people that have had and experienced and needed healing themselves. So I want to get to that. But I remember through my series of losses, and everybody knows my story, my mom died, and then my wonderful Mark died, and on and on. And after a certain amount of time, I found myself sort of checking an internal clock and saying, come on, you should be over this by now. Pull yourself together. As Cher said in Moonstruck, snap out of it. And I was so hard on myself, as if grief was a competition to win.
Yeah.
And so this allowing your feelings, this is new for me. This is new for me, and maybe for some of our listeners as well. But I always ask each of my guests this particular question: what is the pain that changed you forever?
Well, I think, that's a good question. I think it's been a series of different experiences in my life. Finding out in college that my mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and really going through that the past 20 years, watching someone you love physically deteriorate has been very painful. And then dealing with the anxiety and stress from that, and then also pain from dealing with deployments, with my husband being in the military and having to do the solo mom gig for a while, and the struggle that went with that is really what sent me on this journey of self-discovery, to find different practices to help me feel good. And it has been a journey. And I mean, it's about, I always tell people, it's about figuring out what works for you, because what works for one person isn't always going to work for the next, and giving yourself the gift of exploring different opportunities that come across your path, and seeing if it's the thing that's going to move the needle for you.
So there's usually a story that anyone can relate to, and you've got two powerful ones there. One is a parent faced with a diagnosis and then watching that diagnosis unfold. And then sort of like a 1-2 punch, being married and a military wife whose husband was deployed. Can we dig into that just a little
Sure.
bit? Because not everybody who is listening knows what that experience is like.
Mm-hmm.
So he was deployed. Was he in combat?
He's been deployed multiple times. I think the third time was the most challenging for me, because that was the first time he was being deployed since having kids. So yes, he was in certain situations, in dangerous situations in combat, and so there's fear around worrying about his well-being and his safety, and worrying about how my kids are processing it, and then of course worrying about myself and how I'm showing up for my kids. And for me, that was the motivation to figure it out too, because I started having panic attacks after we found out that he was going to deploy. I started having panic attacks and just feeling really out of control, and nobody likes feeling out of control. So
No, and let's, this is really good, because see, I know Lauren, who is so put together, and I have such admiration for you and how you handle life. But I think it's so important to acknowledge where you were, because there are people that are in panic mode right now. And it is, well, tell us what a panic attack truly feels like.
I'll tell you, my most memorable one was waking up from a dead sleep and just feeling like I couldn't breathe, and just starting to cry and just feeling completely out of control. And at the time, my daughter was 4, and I just remember wanting to go to her room and wake her up, so I wasn't alone. But no mom is going to go wake their child up for no good reason. And like, I don't know, the universe knew what I needed, and suddenly she was in my doorway, and she came and she crawled into my bed, and we would always do this thing where we would just hold hands. And I often let her sleep in my bed when he was gone. And so she came in, and I didn't want her to know that I was crying, so I was really trying to like keep it together, and we just held hands, and I was able to sync my breathing with her breathing, and it brought me back. And yeah, my kids are my why. And so it was at that time, it was really so in reflecting back, I can say that I would go to yoga in challenging times during my life. And so I found myself in a yoga studio, and there was a flyer about yoga teacher training, and something deep within me said, this is what you need to do. Like, this is what you need to do. So on the spot, signed up for it, which is not typically how I operate. I usually analyze it a million ways. And that kickstarted everything, because then I was surrounding myself with people that were into energy work, and I got introduced to breath work and meditation and sound healing, and eventually EFT, which really was a game changer for me. And yeah, and then I went down these roads of getting certified so I could share it with others.
So what I'm hearing in almost every interview is there was this irresistible must guiding you to an answer, guiding you through the dark time.
Mhm.
And the challenge is you can talk yourself out of that. But when you lean into it, a path is revealed for
Mhm.
you. And I admire the fact that you decided to follow that path. It just was a string that started with yoga. And then did the panic attacks stop, or did you now just have tools to deal with them better and more effectively?
It took a while. It took a while, but they have stopped. Yeah, they have. So I'm grateful. I am very grateful for that.
So EFT,
Mhm.
for those who don't understand or are not familiar with the term, let's talk about that for a minute because you are an expert.
Yes, EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And it is a process of gently tapping on certain points of the body while simultaneously acknowledging the emotions that you are feeling. So it's really a tool that helps you to feel the feelings, to sit with it. And the points that we're tapping on are the end points of the meridians. And so I will often compare that to acupuncture. So instead of putting needles in the points, we're applying acupressure to some of those same points. So taking from Chinese medicine, and that's our energy moves through our meridians. And so by tapping on those points, we can get the energy moving. There's also been studies that show that by tapping on these points, it sends a message to the amygdala in the brain to reduce the amount of cortisol being sent through the body, which is the stress hormone. And tapping helps you to, ground yourself, come back home to yourself, and move through the tough emotions.
So when I initially tried it, all I could think is this feels weird. I look ridiculous. What
Uh-huh.
the heck? And then yet there is this relief.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was very skeptical when I was introduced to it. I was told, oh, this is a practice that can help you with your anxiety. It can also help with physical pain. And I thought to myself, what? That sounds so weird. I'm tapping on myself and that's supposed to make me feel better. But I was in a place where I was dealing with so much anxiety, and it was like, okay, whatever. It's weird. I'm going to give it a try. And then I started to feel the difference in my body. And that was enough for me. I was like, okay, it's weird. I don't understand why this is happening. I didn't really understand any of the science of what was going on in my brain at that time, but it was enough to keep me curious and enough to get me to continue to practice it and go for one-on-one sessions and keep exploring it.
So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but for those listening right now, could there be a brief exercise you walk us through?
Sure. Yeah, we could definitely do that.
Because I think for those watching, they can see it, or listening, they can sort of hear it and maybe go along. Do you start out holding an intention or a thought?
Well, you can start off just noticing how you're feeling. When I first introduce it to people, I usually do what's called this constricted breathing exercise, because oftentimes how our breath is impacts how we are feeling, right? So if you are having a shallow breath, or if your breath feels tight, sometimes that can be related to stress or overwhelm. So I would just encourage people to pause for a moment and take a deep breath in and really tune into the quality of your breath. Does your breath feel smooth? Does it feel easy? Is it more challenging to get that breath in? And then what we do is we give it a number on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 would be the easiest breath ever, you feel great, and 10 would be the most challenging breath ever. And the reason why we give ourselves a number is that then we can come back and just have a point of reference and see if that number shifts. So as I take a deep breath in, I personally do feel a little bit of tightness in my chest. And so then what we do, we're going to make this very simple. So we start by tapping on the pinky side of the hand. So I'm using my right hand to tap on the pinky side of my left hand, but you can do it vice versa if you're a lefty and tap on the right side, whichever feels best for you. There's no wrong way of doing this. And then what we do is we say a sentence 3 times. So even though I feel this tightness in my chest, I love and accept myself. Even though my breathing feels tight right now, it's okay and I'm okay. Even though my breathing feels tight in my chest, right here, right now, I'm acknowledging it. And then we move to the next point, and these are called reminder phrases. So then we would go to the top of the head, the crown of the head, and gently tap and say, all of this tightness in my chest. Coming to the start of the eyebrows, all of this tightness I feel in my chest. You also want to be, if you're in a place where you can be repeating these words out loud, you want to be doing that as well, because there is power in saying the words out loud. And then we're going to go to the sides of the eyes. All of this tightness in my chest.
All of this tightness in my chest.
And under the eyes. All of this tightness in my chest.
All of this tightness in my chest.
Under the nose. I feel this constriction in my breathing.
I feel this constriction in my breathing.
Onto the chin crease. I feel this tightness in my chest.
I feel this tightness in my chest.
And then the collarbone, right underneath the collarbone on both sides. I feel this tightness in my chest.
I feel this tightness in my chest.
And then we go under the arm on the side of the body. So for women, it's about the center of the bra strap. And for men, it's about 2.5 inches down from the armpit. All of this tightness in my chest.
All of this tightness in my chest.
And then we go to the back of the hand, back of either hand, between the pinky and the ring finger. All of this tightness in my chest.
All of this tightness in my chest.
And then take a nice deep breath in. And you can reevaluate that number. And that was just one round of tapping. So maybe you notice a difference or maybe not. And if you don't, it's okay.
Well, here's what's interesting. Full disclosure, prior to us recording today, I had to speak at the memorial for my ex-husband who passed away. And I've been very tender all day, yet still wanting to go forward and do this interview with you, because anytime I get with you, lifts my heart up. But I felt, even in the acknowledgement of the tension, a release just in that alone.
Yes. Yes. And that's very true, because a lot of the time we don't say it out loud, right? We think it, and sometimes we think it over and over and over, and we can think something to death, right? And then when we're thinking like that, it can feel really true. And then sometimes when we take the time to say it out loud, say how we're feeling, there can be a cognitive shift that happens, or a release that happens, like hearing yourself say it. Maybe it's like, yeah, I feel this tension in my chest, and you're like, I know why I feel it, right? You have that reaction of like, yeah, I had a tough day. I did a lot today. Or sometimes it's a memory that comes up from your past, and something, from a time in your life where maybe you didn't have the tools or the ability to hold space for what happened, or, if you were a child, maybe you didn't, you weren't able to because of however you were being treated in that particular situation, or the adults that you were around, right? We take on a lot of things from those who teach us, whoever we grow up around. And this is a tool that helps to bring that stuff back up to the surface so that you can acknowledge it and move through it, because so many things from our past can still affect us today. And sometimes we're aware of it, right? If it was like a big trauma that happened in your childhood, you can know, yes, that's still impacting me today. But sometimes it's little memories. I've worked with a lot of people who have this core feeling of not feeling good enough, right? And And sometimes it's a memory that comes up of being in school and having a teacher say they did something wrong, or having a parent say that they're never going to be able to do X, Y, and Z right, or whatever it may be. And it's important that we acknowledge those things, because they like I said, they can build up over time and just contribute to how you're feeling today.
Make the monster under the bed, like that
Mhm.
song, and acknowledging that's there, and you can't just ignore it,
Yeah.
because as you said, it will build up and then eventually come out. We have made the mistake in life often of saying trauma is for those who have been in combat,
Mhm.
but life itself hands us trauma, big T, little t. And we're not walking around victims. I'm never a proponent of that, but I am a proponent of honoring your soul,
Yeah.
honoring it, honoring the pain,
Mhm.
so that it can lead to your purpose. So interestingly, your own coping, your desire to cope and show up for your children when your husband was deployed, led you to what is now your life's purpose. So how are you different as a human being? Not what you do, but who you are.
Yeah, I feel different. I feel calmer and more grounded. And I never thought that I would say that I was grateful for that deployment. We ended up being, well, we found, when we first found out about it, we were told it was going to be 13 months. And then he ended up tearing his ACL. He had to go through all sorts of physical therapy and surgery and all sorts of stuff. And anyway, because of that, we ended up having to live apart for 22 months. So it was a very long period of time. And I never thought I would say that I was grateful for it, but it's because of that I went on this journey, and now I'm getting to do the work that I get to do. And it truly has become my purpose. And I'm so grateful to be able to guide people on their own healing journeys, and introduce these different modalities to people, especially tapping, because a lot of people have never heard of it. And I get a lot of joy out of sharing something new with people.
And you are helping so many people. I know that our listeners will want to connect with you. What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. So if you're curious specifically about EFT and tapping, I have a free masterclass on my website that you can access through mindshiftwithlauren.com/masterclass. And then just through my website, I have a newsletter available, mindshiftwithlauren.com, and all my social media is on there too. If you search for me on Instagram at mindshiftwithlauren.com or Mindshift with Lauren, I'll pop up. My handle is Lauren Nicole, but if you search for Mindshift with Lauren, I'll be there.
So I always end with this one question, which is someone listening right now who is in their dark tunnel. What would you say to encourage them?
I would say that truly the answers are all within, and we simply need, sometimes we need a little help accessing those answers, but the answers really are all within. And don't give up hope, and give yourself the gift of exploring different healing modalities. See what, spark some interest in you, and go after it. Go take a class, or go meet with a different practitioner, and just explore that, because you are worthy of that.
You are worthy of that. Perfect way to end this interview. What an honor to spend time with you, Lauren. It's always a joy. I love sharing your gifts with people any chance I can get. And so with that, thank you for tuning in too. If you know someone whose story of pain has led to purpose, who can actually turn around now and say thank you for that thing that you would have never asked for, what a turning point that is. I'd love to interview them too. Send them my way, brenda@brendaviola.com, and reach out to Lauren. She has healing modalities that can help you through your dark time and give you the power, which is, as they said in The Wizard of Oz, you had the power all the time. It was right there within you. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Brenda.
Have a great day, everyone.